All right, guys, so we're going to talk about midpoints and how to find a midpoint on a segment on this video. First of all, when you discuss what a midpoint is, this you do not need to copy down. You should just be able to download the file and save it to your Google Drive to refer back to. Saves time from writing. A midpoint is going to be, the midpoint of a segment is the point that's going to divide the segment into two congruent segments. So over here we have the picture. So we have here M is the midpoint of segment AB. So you have segment AB, M is the midpoint. So what I did here was we marked these little marks right here, and I highlighted it to make sure you understand these mean that that segment AM right here is congruent to segment MB, saying that these two smaller segments are exactly the same because this is in the dead center of it. Now we need to see how this says AM with no symbol above it is equal to, not congruent, so we're missing the little line above all of these. Okay, this is saying the length of AM, or the distance between A and M, is equal to the length of, or the distance between M and B. So these two things are completely different. One is talking about the physical segment that's drawn there. Then if you don't have the symbols above it and you have an equal, this is telling you we're actually talking about a number. So we want to know, okay, well, if AM is 5, what is MB? 5, because the length 5 is equal to 5. Your segment bisector here, it can be several different things. It could be a point, it could be a ray, it could be a line, or even a plane. It's going to intersect a segment at its midpoint. So here we just have a segment bisector as just a point. In this picture, we're now using a line. Notice the little arrowheads at the end. Okay? A midpoint or a segment bisector bisects, cuts in half, a segment. So it's going to slice it directly in half. Okay? So here it says that line CD is a segment bisector of segment AB. So that tells us this is cutting it directly in half. So we can mark two congruent markings, in which I've highlighted again, so you guys can stick out. So again, the exact same thing we said up here, segment AM is congruent to segment MB. The actual segments are congruent. The length, or the distance, is going to be equal. So if AM again is 5, then MB will be 5 as well. So remember, with your little segment bars above it and your congruent symbol, we're talking about the physical drawing. When we remove those signs, we're talking about a number value. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about, again, this is on your on the file, the Google Doc that you should have gotten. This is the formula. We're going to talk about how to find the midpoint of a number line. You can either use this formula, or I'm going to show you another way to do this. So our first example here is on a number line. Pause and write this down, please. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to show you is how to find it using this formula. So we have this formula next to us, x1 plus x2, which are going to be the 2 points that are on this number line. So for example, that would be F and G. And we're going to add those together and divide by 2. So we're going to take x1, F, which is at -3, and we are going to add x2, which is going to be the other point, G, which is at 3, and we're going to divide this by 2. And you're going to see me put MP for midpoint. Whenever we do this math, you're going to notice that a -3 plus 3 is going to give us a 0 over 2. And if you calculate that, you're going to notice that you're going to come out, this is a 0. Okay, 0 divided by anything gives you 0. So your midpoint is going to be right here at 0. Another way you can do this is you can actually look on the number line. You could count the distance between how many spots did you have to move to get from F to G, divide it by 2. Okay, so if we notice we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We went 6 units. So half of that, halfway, your midpoint is going to be 3 units. So we go 1, 2, 3. So the distance between here is 3, and the distance between here is 3. So that's another way we can find it. Or you can even go 1, 2, bam, right in the middle. You can do it that way as well. Okay? The next thing we're going to do is talking about lengths. So the next thing we're going to look at here is we don't actually have the numbers on here anymore. You're not going to see the number line very often, if at all, in this class. We're just kind of giving you a brief overview of what we're doing here and finding the lengths. And these 3's right here, these are the lengths. This is, if I were to say FM equals, you put 3. Not segment FM is congruent to what, but this is going to be the, and we can write that down. Here we have FM is equal to mg, and that's going to come down to 3 equals 3. So we're looking at length. We're looking at the distances between them. So here, one thing we need to notice is, go ahead, pause it, write it down. Now that you have it written down, we're looking at M as the midpoint. Anytime you see that word midpoint or bisects, you need to remember to mark these congruent markings. Okay? So what this is going to tell you is that the distance between V and M is exactly the same or equal to the distance between M and W. That is exactly what that second part down here was telling you. Okay, right here, the distance are equal. So now we're talking about number values. So what that means is this x plus 2 is equal to the 2x minus 6. So now we can just do our algebra work. So we're going to come down here and say x plus 2 is equal to 2x minus 6. When we start doing the algebra, I like to move the smallest variable. So here I'm going to subtract x from both sides, canceling this out. It's going to bring my 2 down, is equal to, this comes out to a single x minus 6. Then we need to move our constants over to the other side, so add 6 to both sides. This cancels. Bring down your x, and 2 plus 6 is going to give you 8. So x is 8, but you need to hold the phone real quick, ladies and gentlemen, because I did not ask you what does x equal, and this is where a lot of students will make a mistake, and this will be a multiple choice answer. Okay, most likely. We want to know the length of VW, of segment VW. Okay, so what we have to do now is we have to take this x and we have to plug it into this. Because they are the same, you can choose just one of them. And so we're going to take that x, we're going to substitute in 8 plus 2, and we're going to come out to 10. So that means right here is 10. But what do we know about the length of VM and MW? Shout it out. Let everybody in the house know. We know that the length VM and the length of MW are exactly the same. So here we know that VM is equal to MW. So if VM is 10, MW is also 10. And I want to know the whole length. And so what does that come out to be? Well, you add them together, and your answer, length of VW, notice no line because I'm saying length, I'm not writing it, I'm saying length, is 20. Okay, so those are going to be our main kind of, with just a segment on here. The next video is going to talk about with graphs.